A lot of highly sensitive people spend years believing that all of their struggles are caused entirely by their sensitivity, that they're just too emotional, too overwhelmed, too sensitive for the world. But what if the problem is not just sensitivity? What if it's actually a nervous system that never fully learned what safety feels like? What if some things highly sensitive people normalize as personality traits are really just survival responses? If you're new here, my name is Anna. I'm a researcher, public health educator, and highly sensitive person myself. And on this channel, we talk about high sensitivity through the lens of psychology, nervous system science, emotional health, and lived experience. Because I think highly sensitive people deserve conversations that are nuanced, not overly romanticized, and not pathologized either. And with that said, let's talk about something that completely changed the way I understood high sensitivity. Because I think many HSPs are trying to heal their sensitivity when what they're actually experiencing are survival responses they mistook for personality. A lot of chronic survival responses don't feel like such. They feel like identity. I'm just anxious. I'm just bad with conflict. I'm just too sensitive. They become the way you experience yourself. And this is especially important for HSPs because highly sensitive nervous system tends to process experiences more deeply, which means stressful or emotionally unsafe events may leave deeper imprints. And that can create survival adaptations like people-pleasing, hypervigilance, emotional shutdown, constant self-monitoring, or chronic fear of rejection. But here is where things get really interesting. Some HSPs don't actually know who they are underneath adaptation. They only know who they had to become to feel emotionally safe. And once you realize that, you start questioning things you previously thought were just your personality. This is the part that surprises many people the most. Because when people hear the word trauma, they often imagine severe abuse or catastrophic events. But trauma research increasingly shows that trauma is not only about what happened, it's also about what the nervous system experienced as overwhelming, emotionally unsafe, unpredictable, or too much to process alone. Which means trauma can also develop quietly as a response to neglect, chronic criticism, emotional invalidation, walking on eggshells, feeling emotionally unseen, growing up around unpredictability, being shamed for emotions, never fully feeling safe to be yourself. And for highly sensitive children especially, experiences that seem small to others may feel enormous to the nervous system, not because they're weak, but because they process deeply. And I think this is where many HSPs become profoundly misunderstood. Because they spend years being told you're overreacting, you're too emotional, you are too sensitive, without realizing their nervous system may have truly experienced those environments as unsafe. Many highly sensitive people were not shaped by one massive traumatic event. They were shaped by thousands of moments where their nervous system learned it is safer to shrink myself than fully be. And if that happens long enough, adaptation starts feeling normal. And this is where I think things become deeply misunderstood. Because high sensitivity is real. Research on sensory processing sensitivity, including work by Elaine Aron, suggests that HSPs naturally process emotional and environmental input more deeply. But sometimes trauma hides inside what people call sensitivity. For example, have you ever walked into a room and instantly scanned everyone's emotional state? And maybe you called that empathy or intuition or emotional awareness. But sometimes that's hypervigilance, a nervous system trying to predict emotional danger before it happens. Or maybe you feel responsible for everyone else emotionally, and you call that compassion. But underneath, there is fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of disappointing people. And this distinction matters because being deeply empathetic is not the same as chronically abandoning yourself. Being emotionally aware is not the same as living in survival mode. And it seems that some highly sensitive people even confuse exhaustion with sensitivity, when sometimes they're exhausted from constantly trying to stay emotionally safe. And do you know what is the result of that? Many HSPs mistake survival instincts for intuition. Because when hypervigilance has existed your entire life, it can feel like personality. And now comes the most important part of this conversation. Healing does not mean becoming less sensitive. It's not becoming emotionally numb, detached, harder, or less caring. The goal is not to destroy sensitivity. The goal is to separate your natural sensitivity from the fear and survival patterns wrapped around it. Because underneath trauma responses, many highly sensitive people discover something surprising. Their sensitivity was never actually the problem. In fact, it may be one of the healthiest and most intelligent parts of them. The part that notices, the part that feels deeply, the part that recognizes emotional nuance, the part that sees what others miss. But when sensitivity becomes fused with hypervigilance, shame, fear, or chronic nervous system dysregulation, it becomes difficult to know where your personality ends and survival begins. And I think healing for many highly sensitive people is partly about untangling those two things. Not rejecting sensitivity, but finally creating enough safety in the nervous system that sensitivity no longer has to operate through survival mode. So if this video resonated with you, I hope it helps you reconsider something important. Are you only too sensitive? Or has your nervous system also been carrying more than anyone realized? Because understanding that difference can completely change the way you relate to yourself. If you're looking for more ways to connect, I offer free connection calls where we can talk about what you are navigating and what your experiences have been like. While I'm not a mental health therapist, I care deeply about translating research and lived experience into conversations that help highly sensitive people feel more seen and understood. And hearing your stories truly helps me shape this channel and deeply supportive community I hope to build here. So if this video reflected parts of your experience that you've never fully had words for before, I'd really love to connect. The link to my calendar is below. And maybe this is the beginning of seeing yourself through a completely different lens.